September 26, 2009, nanalasa ang bagyong Ondoy sa malaking bahagi ng Luzon. Ang ilang lugar sa Metro Manila, tulad na lang sa Pasig, ilang bahagi ng Rizal at sa Provident Village sa Marikina City na nalubog sa lampas bubong na baha. Sa tala ng National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, aabot sa 464 ang namatay dahil sa bagyo. 11 bilyong pisong halaga naman ang pinsala sa mga infrastruktura at agrikultura. Delubyo ang idinulot ng bagyong Ondoy, pero nag-iwan din ito ng mga aral para mas maging handa tayong mga Pilipino.
If you live in the Philippines, floods are not just a memory, they're a cycle. Every year it's the same story. Heavy rains, submerged streets, people stranded, and homes destroyed. And despite all the flood control projects and promises, we're still wading through the same problem. Back in 2009, Typhoon Ondoy changed the way we saw rain. It wasn't just water falling from the sky, it was something that drowned lives, homes, and even dreams. And Shake, Rattle, and Roll 13's episode Rain, Rain, Go Away captured that fear perfectly. It wasn't about monsters or ghosts this time. It was about guilt and the trauma of people who lived through something they could never escape, not even after storm had passed. And in a country suffering from floods almost every year, this episode is timely. So today, let's talk about it. This is Shake, Rattle, and Roll 13's episode Rain, Rain, Go Away. Let me tell you the story. During the onslaught of Typhoon Ondoy, Cynthia and her family are forced to flee as both their homes and factory are consumed by rising floodwaters. In the chaos, Cynthia, heavily pregnant, goes into labor and is rushed to the hospital by her husband, Mar. On the news, reports surfaced about a tragedy in Marikina, where several child laborers drowned inside a factory. A year later, Cynthia and Mar have moved into a new condominium, trying to start over after losing their baby to a miscarriage during the storm. They are now expecting another child and running a new plastic factory with Mar's brother, Nante. After work, Nante offers Cynthia a ride home, but when the rain begins to pour, her trauma resurfaces. Still haunted by the memories of Ondoy, she panics and decides to go ahead alone. Moments later, Nante is trapped in his car as it mysteriously fills with water, drowning him in the parking lot. Police investigate, but Cynthia's nightmares worsen. She dreams of Nante's bloated body floating in his coffin, only to wake in fear. The following day, while touring a wealthy couple around the factory, Cynthia notices a locked warehouse and feels an uneasy presence. Later, she encounters an old woman who returns a donation and cryptically warns her. The encounter sends Cynthia into shock and she collapses. At the hospital, she wakes to the haunting sight of children drawing an eerie eye while singing Rain, Rain, Go Away. Returning home, Cynthia tells Mar about her dreams and the typhoon victims, but he dismisses her fears. He even told her that she needs to stop drinking a fake diet pill that might have an illegal drug in it. That night, they invite a priest to bless the factory, hoping to rid it of the spirits, but the old woman from before watches from a distance as if knowing what's about to come. Later, Cynthia overhears their maid, Dina, talking to the same old woman. Dina shares that the woman warned her, the dead never rest when no one tries to save them. Meanwhile, tragedy strikes again. Mar mysteriously drowned inside an elevator filled with water. Cynthia barely escapes her own flooded bathroom, encountering the ghosts of drowned children. When she flees to the elevator, she discovers Mar's lifeless body inside. In her grief and panic, she suddenly goes into labor. The film will make you think that she had another miscarriage, but luckily, she gives birth to a healthy baby. At a hospital, Cynthia and her mother-in-law Marites finally confess their secret. They were responsible for locking those child workers inside the factory during the storm, abandoning them to drown. Their guilt has returned to claim them, one by one. Soon after, Marites meets her own end when a truck loaded with bottled water crashes into her. By the way, their deaths need to be water-related, so I think this one still counts. Desperate to make amends, Cynthia sells their factory and returns the donation to the old woman, only to realize her grandchildren were the same children who died in the flood. Begging for forgiveness, Cynthia asks the old woman to accept the offering so that the children's soul can rest. In the film's final moments, Cynthia revisits the warehouse, drenched in rain as ghostly voices sing "Rain, Rain, Go Away." She stops running, finally facing the haunting consequences of her guilt. As the waters rise, she accepts her faith and joins the spirits she once abandoned. The last shot reveals the drowned children, giving their last care, before the scene fades to black. If you look closer, Rain Rain Go Away is a story about guilt, one that seeps into every corner of the film like the very floodwaters it portrays. It's not just the horror of the ghost or drowning that drives the fear, but the weight of what the characters did and what they chose not to do. Cynthia and her family's haunting is not random. The spirits that torment them are the same child workers they left behind to die, locked in a factory during Typhoon Ondoy. That choice made out of self-preservation and denial literally comes back to drown them. Every storm feels like a reminder that the truth has a way of resurfacing, no matter how much we try to seal it away. What makes this theme even more chilling is how it mirrors our real life. Even years after Ondoy and amid ongoing flood control controversies here in the Philippines, we're still seeing stories of people in power or those simply too comfortable turning a blind eye while others are left behind. The movie captures that idea in its own eerie way, that disasters don't just reveal nature's wrath, but human neglects as well. And Eugene Domingo's performance as Cynthia makes that guilt feel painfully real. She's not a villain, but she's also not innocent. Her breakdowns, her panic at the rain, they all feel like the mind of someone who can't escape what she's done, even if she wants to. It's horror rooted not in monsters, but in conscience. If guilt is the film's moral weight, then trauma is its shadow, that part that follows Cynthia long after the storm has passed. The flood may have receded, but for her, it never really ended. Drop of rain, sound of running water, it all becomes a trigger, a reminder of that night when she lost everything and everyone she failed to save. What makes this portrayal stand out is how Rain Rain Go Away turns trauma into something physical. The film doesn't just show Cynthia remembering her past, it makes her relive it again and again. The way she freezes when it rains, the panic in her eyes when she hears water rushing, it's not overacting. It's someone living inside their own nightmare. Oh, and by the way, fear of water is indeed real and it's called aquaphobia. Just want to say that. Eugene Domingo captures that perfectly. You can see how she's trying to be composed, trying to move on, but the fear keeps bleeding through. And that's what makes this horror hit harder than most. The ghosts here don't need to chase Cynthia. She's already haunted. It's an honest look at how people carry the weight of disaster. How trauma doesn't disappear when the flood drains. It stays, quiet but heavy, like humidity after a storm. Consequences are what finally catch up to Cynthia. Rain Rain Go Away doesn't treat the ghosts as random monsters. They're the past made visible, the children who drowned because of greed and negligence. It is poetic justice in the most terrifying way. The people who let others drown are now being drowned themselves. What's powerful here is how the film doesn't rely on jump scares to make the point. The real horror comes from realizing that Cynthia and her family aren't innocent victims of a curse. They're part of the reason those kids died. The haunting becomes a form of reckoning. Every death, every flawed scene feels like a reminder that you can't wash away guilt with time or money. The water just seeps through everything. It's almost symbolic of how the Philippines deals with accountability. Disasters happen, people die, and then everyone moves on until the next one hits again. The movie holds a mirror up to that, and it doesn't blink. After all the horror and guilt, Rain Rain Go Away ends on something surprisingly human. Not forgiveness, but acceptance. Cynthia's final act isn't about surviving or fighting back. It's about facing what she and her family did and making peace with the people they wronged. When she goes back to the factory, she's no longer running from the ghosts. She's walking towards them. That scene feels less like punishment and more like surrender. She finally acknowledges the life's loss, and in that moment, the haunting stops being about revenge. It becomes a reckoning that leads to release. It is a rare kind of ending for a horror movie, one that doesn't need a final scare, well, except for the last one. Instead, it lingers on quiet guilt and uneasy peace. Cynthia's death doesn't feel cruel, it feels like balance is restored. The film reminds us that redemption doesn't always come with survival. Sometimes it's simply about owning up to what we've done and letting the truth wash over us, no matter how heavy it feels. Rain Rain Go Away stands out in the Shake, Rattle, and Roll lineup because it's not just a ghost story. It's a story about the weight of memory, guilt, and the things we try to forget when the storms finally clears up. What makes it so haunting isn't the supernatural revenge, it's how close it feels to real life. The floods, the helplessness, the guilt of people trying to move on while others never got the chance, all of it mirrors the aftermath of real tragedies we've seen here in the Philippines. Eugene Domingo's restrained yet powerful performance as Cynthia grounds the horror in something painfully human. The floods become more than just a background, they're a symbol of the emotions that keep resurfacing, no matter how much we try to rebuild it. This episode doesn't end with the usual scream or jump scare. It ends with quiet acceptance, and maybe that's what makes it even scarier. Because it tells us that some ghosts don't disappear. They stay with us, in the water, in our memories, waiting for the moment we're ready to face them again.